Today I want to share my post-graduation dissertation project finding and some learning experiences. So this project has been conducted in Bangladesh in a national park area. So before going ahead to the whole uh, presentation and findings, I want to share the background to come out of this study. We know that there are limited understanding of winter ecology of migratory shorebird species, especially in the Southeast and Southeast Asian country and in Bangladesh. So from that scenario, we thought to partly answer some questions. We know that studies lastly explored the findings in a larger spatial scale. These larger spatial scales can aid site level conservation aspects and also help to the conservation needs. But we thought a site specific as fine scale understanding in a minimum kilometers and a minimum space can also add more information to understand the large mudflat complexes of this species. So from that view, we partly thought to answer and investigated the factors underlying the selection of fine-scale foraging habitat by this species within the intertidal mudflats of two neighboring islands under a single national park area of the central coast of Bangladesh. So the main goal of my study was to understand the specific habitat and data requirements of this non-breeding shorebird species by looking the objectives of how densities and composition of these species as well as their foraging successes are influenced by food availability and composition. And also, we thought to investigate how food itself is correlated with the underlying abiotic factors. By keeping in mind these goals and objectives, my study focused in two neighboring islands named Nijumdip and Domarchor. These are situated in the central coast of Bangladesh under a national park named Nijumdip National Park. This national park is situated in the Bay of Bengal along the central coast, as I told, and it includes a cluster of 11 small offshore islands. And my study focused on two neighboring islands among these offshore 11 islands. So this park is an important bird and biodiversity area and also situated in the Ganges Brahmaputra Delta belt. So I looked before going to the methods and the findings. I want to share the what are the features of these islands. So in these two islands, there are wide areas of mudflats, and each island has sandbars. And during winter, it also harbor 30 to 50,000 of migratory water birds of 95 species. But there are some distinguishing features in my focal islands. Like in Nejum Lake, it is mostly populated area in respect to both residents and tourists, and most parts are covered with patches of planted mangrove forest. And center of this island is under cultivation and human habitation, along with the intertidal mudflats and sandflats. On the other hand, Domachar is a highly dynamic island because uh, its mudflats and sandbar is changing since 2005 in every year in each way. So mostly this island is there and used by the grazing for cattle grazing and herders and the local crab collectors and fishermen. So this study conducted in two seasons of the last winter, the early winter phase and post-winter phase, to test the relationship between the shorebird's presence and habitats at a fine scale. The coastal periphery of the island is divided into small fragments, that is 200 to 100 meters depth. As I told before, that we wanted to look how these species are choosing the winter foraging ground in smaller fine scale. That is why we kept it like this, and these are the sampling units of this study. So there are 30 such segments used to sample, where in Nijum Deep, which was populated island, there are 14 of them, and in Domacha there are 60 segments. Sampling was carried out only during low tide period. That means before starting this process, I reached to the nearby segments during the high tide period, and then continuous of the observation was conducted for 3 to 4 hours, and this observation started from the peak height 2 hours after the peak height date. So in each 30 segments, I estimated shorebird density and richness, availability, soil temperature, and density during these 4 hours. So for first 3 hours, I looked scans for species, this is repeated in every 30 minutes, and at the end, the average count were calculated. And the scans for behavioral states also looked to check the foraging, preening, locomotion, alert, and resting phases of the species. And the focal observation were looked to understand the probing number and the successful probes of the species from that selective segment. So at the end of the period, we had 36 focal sessions during the entire 3 hours. Besides this, at the last hour of observation, that means the fourth hour of observation, we entered into the segments. We kept this session at the end of the period to minimize the disturbance for the species. So at the end period, we went into the segment and collected the mud sample, and there are 6 samples are collected from each of the samples, and soil temperature were also collected as a parameter of abiotic factors, and along with it, soil density was also calculated. So for soil density, we collected the samples and then dried it in the field station and then calculated as density index. There is a view of a segment that I followed. So there are I stood in front of segment by keeping 50-meter distance, and there were segment 6 points of benthic samples and soil temperature, and I checked and counted all of the species inside this segment only. So what are the findings of this study? At the end of the period, a total of 31 shorebird species were detected, including 3 globally threatened species like spoonbill sandpiper, Nordman gilshank, and great knot, and along with 8 near-threatened species, including black-tailed godwit, bar-tailed godwit, Asian dowitcher, and so on. Among these 31 species, 25 species were on the Domachor and 20 species were in the Nichundik, and most of the globally threatened and threatened species were found only in the Domachor compared to the Nichundik Island. So the highest counts of this segment are for lesser sand plover and black-tailed godwit, and the most abundant species were lesser sand plover, black-tailed godwit, and common red shed. These are some species; those are recorded from my study site. Coming to the shorebird density and composition, how it was. For investigating the further relationship between these species and their preferences, we classified all shorebird species into 2 categories. Shorebirds, those are preferred worms, and shorebirds, those prefer non-worms. 17 out of 31 recorded species preferred worms, and 14 species preferred other prey. So we did not find any clear seasonality in Nichundik, and higher numbers in February in March 2022 than in December 2019 to January 22. But densities of worm-eating shorebirds were higher compared to the Nichundik to the mature area, particularly in December and January. The reason can be Nichundik is a densely populated area with the tourists and the human activity, so might be the species are more abundant in the Domachor area compared to that island. So how was the prey density and composition? Among the all recorded benthic organisms, we found that polychaete worms constituted the highest percentages, and densities of polychaete worms being 2-3 times higher than the densities of other prey species. But there are no clear difference observed in densities of worms and other prey between islands, and also there is no seasonal differences at all. And among the recorded species, only lesser sand plover showed relationship with the density of its preferences among the most 9 abundant species. And at Domachor Island, high quality habitats, here high quality habitats means the habitats which constituted 1,000 plus worms in per square meter square in 10 centimeters depth, and it supported close to 100 lesser sand plovers. But at Nichundik, these high mature area, high quality habitats are more important to this species compared to the other islands. Across species level, we found the density of worm eaters correlated strongly with the worm density, whereas the density of non-worm eaters did not correlate with the density of other prey species. As density and richness of worm eaters correlated with worm density between the islands, we found that Domature had more shorebirds at low quality habitats and showed greater gains as habitat quality increased. And also in both islands had 2 to 4 species more in high quality habitats than the low quality. And in between the relationship between the foraging success and preyability, we found that foraging success increased with the increasing amount of worm density in both of the islands for 2 of the species among the 4 abundant species, like for black-tailed godwit and common greenshank. For black-tailed godwit, we found that it increased approximately 13% of responses in high-quality habitats, and in common greenshank, we found that it responded 9% in high-quality habitats. All analyses here are weighted by the number of foraging attempts because we kept all of the higher sample sizes at a greater influence in the relationship. So the prey density did not appear to correlate consistently with either the soil temperature or soil density as we calculated the abiotic parameters. Here only the soil temperature showed some seasonal variation compared to the other parameters of this study. So we kept the analysis of soil temperature in the seasonal aspect, and for all other parameters we analyzed everything in segment level. So what are the summary of findings from this study? Our result reinforced the understanding that this site, Nejomdir National Park area, is globally important for wintering shorebirds. As we look in the smaller stretches and in an island aspect, so in smaller 200-meter stretch, we found that shorebird numbers and richness strongly correlated with the availability of polychaete worms. And pattern was clear when all species are combined, but was not at all similar for the individual species level. And shorebirds aggregated in better quality habitats, possibly because their prey intake rates include increasing prey density. Shorebirds that do not prefer worms did not correlate with densities of non-worm prey, and soil temperature and substrate density as a part of abiotic patterns did not influence prey availability in this study. The reason can be the way we looked at these parameters did not support it or not appropriate the sample sizes, so it did not show any pattern in this study. But at the scale of the island level, we found that shorebirds appear to prefer the Domature over Nejomdir, independent of prey density. The possible reasons might be higher raptor density at Nejomdir, as it is densely populated, and also the fishermen use this site for intertidal fishing during this winter period. So the raptor density is higher in this island compared to the other one. And another reason I highlighted before, that more human disturbances and different substrate types as well. And another reason can be the presence of more habitat for roosting and foraging ground at that during the low tide and high tide period at Domature compared to Nejomdir made it more favorable to this species. So what are the further recommendations we can say from this study? The best shorebird habitat within a site can be identified by quantifying available food. Such favorable habitats can be periodically monitored to identify early wintering signs of decline. The mudflats of these particular sites are superficially similar to other sites across the South Asia and Southeast Asia. So this study can indicate and relevant for habitat management across this critical region. More studies are required before the results can be highlighted. We are yet to understand what makes the mudflats on this island so favorable or the species for the species, and need to pursue this question further also. as the answer has global relevance for the conservation of this migratory species. So I want to thank my guides and also my local advisor and so many organizations and my institute as well for funding this study and for guiding me, because without the help of the plenty of people it was not easy to uh, go ahead with this study and came out with some interesting findings. So I want to thank all and thank you everybody all for listening my learning experience.